Seth Lugo might have had his best start of 2024. Let's dive into it in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can find us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, some co-hosting, and a little bit of producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Now, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Well, I'm recording this in the moments after the Royals shut out the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium 5-0. They get a dazzling start from Seth Lugo. I had the recap over on Royals Review, so there was a lot of things going on right up until the final pitch of that game. But we've got so much to talk about from this impressive victory for the Royals, not only for what it means in 2024, at least the regular season of 2024, but maybe a look into what we might get here next month in this exact same stadium, maybe with an identical pitching matchup of Lugo versus Stroman. But tonight, after coming off of I don't want to see an absolute downer of a game on Monday. It wasn't good. I mean, James McArthur blows the game. We talked about it all yesterday and why Matt Quatraro went to James McArthur. But this was another great opportunity for Seth Lugo to show why he's not slowing down. He's not running out of gas because of the inning workload, right? He's nearing 200. I believe if he gets 7 innings next go-around, he will be at 200 innings, and he's still got probably 3 more starts in him. Let's all be honest there. So he'll probably eclipse 200 innings unless he doesn't work that deep into the game. But let's all be honest here. This is as good as Seth Lugo has looked all season long. In his last 3 starts, all 3 coming against playoff teams, he throws 7 innings of 1-run ball against Houston. He throws 7 innings of 1-run ball against Cleveland and 7 shutout innings against that lineup tonight that has Juan Soto, that has Aaron Judge, that has Gleyber Torres, Giancarlo Stanton, Austin Wells. The list goes on and on and on. That's a damn good Yankees team and a damn good offense. And Seth Lugo made him look like the White Sox tonight. 10 Ks, no walks. The Royals pitching staff in general not only was great tonight, they've been great for the last 5 games. That's their 3rd shutout and their last 5 victories. Again, wins against playoff teams. This late into the season, I can't say enough by how impressive that is. But I go back to a post-game interview that Seth Lugo had. Maybe it was after the Minnesota game. I'm drawing a blank on the next start that Seth Lugo made after he got bombed in Minnesota. But I want to say this post-game interview was after the Minnesota game, and he was asked point blank, do you feel like you're wearing down? Do you feel like the inning workload is getting to you? You've never thrown this many innings before in a big league season. You've been a reliever the majority of your season. How is it affecting you? He said, I feel fine. I don't feel tired. I feel ready to go. And suddenly, he starts going on a tear again. And I think this is more impressive than what Seth Lugo was giving the Royals back in April and May. It was great for Lugo to get off to a start like that, but this is the playoff push. This is the gauntlet. And Seth Lugo, 3 straight times now, has gone 7 innings of 1 run or fewer. And not in favorable ballparks as well, with the exception of Kauffman Stadium. He throws 7 innings of 1-run ball against Houston at Minute Maid and 7 innings of no-run ball against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. And he's racking up strikeouts. He unfortunately gets no offensive help in the game against the Astros because Framber Valdez throws 7 no-hit innings when Seth Lugo's pitching almost just as well. And keep in mind, that home run I believe he gave up to Ben Gamel was a home run in like 2 ballparks, and one of them being Minute Maid. So a little bit of bad luck involved in there. And then you go to the Cleveland start. The only run the Guardians scored off Lugo was a bloop opposite field single, a little nubber by Jose Ramirez. And to me, that has been this perfect, I guess, description of Seth Lugo in 2024. That he is somebody that if you get to him, if you really start knocking him around, a little bit of bad luck involved, or at least from Seth Lugo's perspective. From the other offense, it's good luck involved. Squibbing the ball off the end of the bat. Maybe getting squeezed a little bit. The last time Lugo had faced the Yankees, he didn't pitch that well, but he got squeezed. And Carlos Rodon was phenomenal against the Royals lineup. So he hasn't always gotten the run support, but now you get to this point in the season, and it really doesn't matter if you only give him 1 or 2 runs. These last 3 starts have been, in my opinion, the best 3 starts that Seth Lugo has had for the Royals. I remember the start in Anaheim against the Angels when he had, 12 strikeouts. The start he had against Detroit in which he had double-digit strikeouts. Those were fine. Those were great. Let's put into perspective what these last 3 starts have been and who they've been against and where the Royals were. No, Seth Lugo was the stopper for the losing streak. They lost 7 in a row. They were going into that series finale against Cleveland, and the offense didn't really give him much again until Tommy Pham's 3-run home run. Tonight, the offense is getting base runners on against Marcus Stroman, but they don't really break through until the 3rd inning when Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez drive in a pair of runs. Then it's 2-0, and he's still cruising. Nobody's getting on base against him. I believe he had sat down, 17 in a row after the leadoff single, which was a bloop single by Gleyber Torres, and then Gleyber Torres snapped that streak with another bloop single. He gave up 3 hits tonight, 3 singles. No damage whatsoever. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge didn't get on base. I was going to say hitless, but we got to factor in that he didn't walk him either. Nobody in the bullpen, not Chris Bubich, not John Schreiber, walked Juan Soto or Aaron Judge. In fact, John Schreiber struck out Juan Soto and then got Aaron Judge to have a lazy fly ball to right field. So that's the difference tonight. Completely eliminated Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And I think there was one at bat in this game that I looked at and I said, okay, yeah, Seth Lugo's going 6 shutout tonight, 7 shutout. And it was a little bit later on into his outing, so I don't want to act like I'm some guru here and I predicted it in the 1st inning. It was when he attacked Juan Soto with a runner on base, and it was a 3-run game. So 1 bad pitch in a bad spot, and Juan Soto has cut this lead to 1, and you're trusting this bullpen once again to get you 10 to 12 outs to win this game at Yankee Stadium. Don't feel too good about that. But Juan Soto last night wasn't really pitched to. I think he had 2 or 3 walks. I know for a fact 2. I'm trying to think if there was a 3rd walk in there. The Royals weren't throwing him many strikes. They didn't want to get burned by Juan Soto. And Seth Lugo gets the ball after Gleyber Torres snaps his long streak there of retiring 16 or 17 in a row. And he's going out of the stretch again, so that can throw you off a little bit. And he goes strike 1, strike 2, and the 3rd pitch was right down the middle, and Juan Soto flied out. And I had to wonder in that moment if Juan Soto flew out to left field, by the way, because he wasn't expecting Seth Lugo to give him 3 hittable pitches. There's not many pitchers out there that will just attack Juan Soto like he's a 9-hole hitter. I mean, they were well located. Pitch 1, pitch 2 were very well located. It was I believe a curveball. It might have been a slider on the first pitch, and then it was that cutter right in on the hands, right on the border of the top left corner of the zone. And then pitch number 3 was a fastball right down the middle. And Juan Soto was late and popped it up to MJ Melendez in left field. And I immediately went to the pitch tracks again because I thought I was not seeing that correctly. I mean, 94 right down the middle. And lo and behold, it was 94 right down the middle. And I think Juan Soto was late on it because he wasn't expecting that type of pitch in an 0-2 count. He's Juan Soto, for God's sakes. You're not going to give him 3 straight strikes, yet Seth Lugo did. And that's when I went, okay, I don't think the Yankees have any idea what pitch he's throwing. They don't look comfortable up there, hence the 10 strikeouts that he had. And they weren't barreling him up. There were no hard outs in that game. Very soft contact from a Yankees lineup that is known for hard contact, that is known for driving the ball out of the yard, for putting up 10 runs on your bullpen like it felt like they did last night. But Seth Lugo was the aggressor, and the Royals couldn't have gotten a better gift in September than Seth Lugo returning to form. Because now you look at a best of 3, which we talked about last night. If Cole Ragans goes out tomorrow and he wins this series for the Royals, yeah, it's great for the regular season. You're getting one step closer to locking in that number 2 wild card spot or still making a push for the division. It's all fine and dandy. But then you're looking at 3 guys you can throw in a playoff series. Ragans, Lugo, and Waka that are red hot right now. I would guarantee you every single team in the American League is going, I don't want to face that. I can have confidence in my lineup. I would much rather face a rotation that has depleted guys in it. They are out of gas, or they are calling somebody up to fill that spot. I mean, the Twins got unlucky with Joe Ryan going on the injured list. The Guardians got unlucky back in April with Shane Bieber going on the injured list. The Royals had Michael Lorenzen go on the injured list, and Michael Walker a few times go on the injured list, or actually, excuse me, it was one time, but he did miss his first start that was supposed to be in that first series against Minnesota because he got hit by a comebacker at the very tail end of spring training. I always want to count that as an injured list stint. It was not. It was one injured list stint when he had the comebacker that hit his foot. So 2 comebackers, a sideline Michael Walker for a little bit of time. But that front 3 in the rotation has been phenomenal. And keep in mind, when Lorenzen, who the Royals believe can get back on track this weekend, get back up to Kansas City as early as that, you got Brady Singer, Michael Lorenzen, and Alec Marsh you can throw out of the bullpen if one of those guys doesn't go deep into the game. But right now, I got no reason to believe they can't go deep into the game. Seth Lugo's red hot, Cole Ragans is red hot, and Michael Walker is red hot. There are no 3 guys I would rather have starting a best of 3 series against the Yankees, Baltimore, Houston, whoever it may be. Maybe it's Cleveland if Houston can leapfrog them in the seeding race. But to me, that's who you want out there. And Seth Lugo continues to cement that fact. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, 34-year-old Salvador Perez gets to 100 RBIs on the season yet again. Let's dive into his ridiculous season next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our first sponsor today in Gametime. I know that the regular season is winding down and you're thinking about maybe going out to that series against the Giants. I'll be out for 2 of them. My brother's a Giants fan, so we're going to go to a handful of those games. The next homestand, the Tigers will be coming into town. They got a playoff spot on the line. You got NFL football this Sunday, Chiefs and Bengals at Arrowhead Stadium. KU is looking to bounce back after the loss to Illinois. They got UNLV at Children's Mercy Park. No better time to go to Gametime and buy your tickets. Look at some of the deals they have out there. I got my notifications on, so they alert me when some ticket prices have dropped, and I can go check in on those. I've been checking in all week long to see what deals I can get, but that is the place that I go to buy my tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. I think in this 2024 magical run, and I do want to call out something real quick. I think that my official record prediction back in March would have been a couple of days, maybe a week or 2 before opening day. I think I said 80 and 82. That was my official prediction. I thought they'd be in it all the way up until September, and I said that would be fine. Well, the Royals, after tonight's win against the New York Yankees, 5-0, are 80 and 66 on the season. They are 1 win away from tying the 2016 squad's win total. They tied the 2017 squad's win total tonight. They need 2 more wins in the next 16 games to have their first winning season in 9 years. But we all know that's not the focus here, right? We all know that they are focused on getting to 90 wins, right? Finding a way to win 10 of the last 16 and having one of, if not the greatest single season turnaround in Major League Baseball history. There are a lot bigger things at hand here than just getting your first winning season. The Royals know they're going to be having their first winning season, and hopefully as early as this weekend. But Salvador Perez got to experience this, and I think that there was no more deserving player on this roster, and maybe nobody else in baseball, that deserved a season like this. Salvador Perez stuck it out in some awful years. And I'd imagine there were times last year when Kauffman Stadium was empty and this team was 44 and 102. And probably well before that, this team was out of it, or the 2023 team was out of it a few weeks into April. And Salvador Perez, though he loves the game of baseball, had to have been thinking in his mind, here we go again. It is nearly a decade since I got to play in October. And I know there's talent here, but I've been told that so many years after some of my best friends left. Now, Lorenzo Cain leaves Kansas City, immediately goes to the postseason. Eric Hosmer goes to San Diego, gets paid handsomely, and is surrounded by just a young core of talent that reminded him of the Royals. And the Padres had their own successes, and Eric Hosmer didn't have the greatest end to his career, but he's a World Series champion, he's a Royals legend, and he still got to experience good baseball, better baseball than what Salvador Perez got. Alcides Escobar had some opportunities, but didn't really get the chance. Mike Moustakas did, right? He comes back to the Royals in 18, same with Escobar, but, Alcides Escobar goes to the Nationals, I think it was, or I can't remember where Escobar ended up going right after the Royals, but Moustakas gets traded to Milwaukee in a playoff push. He gets to experience that. Alex Gordon stays around a little bit longer, but then retires. There were guys that got their opportunity and didn't have to wait this long to experience October baseball game, to experience sold-out crowds, Royals sold-out crowds, and having this playoff push, and you can tell how much he's enjoying it. These MLB Network segments, the fans embracing him, and baseball embraces Salvador Perez. They see how much of an icon he is, how much he loves the sport, and how loyal he's been. I can't say that every player out there wouldn't, look at an opportunity like Salvador Perez had and just wanted to leave back in 2018 or 2019. Hey, this is going to be a long rebuild I don't want to be a part of, and I don't want to waste years of my prime playing on teams that are not going to be winning baseball teams. He decided to stick it out. He stuck it out through a 100-loss season in 2018. He stuck it out through a 100-loss season in 2019. And I understand he got hurt in one of those years and didn't play. But he's still in the clubhouse. He's in the dugout watching this happen. COVID year, he's dealing with other complications. Has a great year, but it's a shortened year, not a typical baseball year. 2021, right? The resurgence comes. He has that incredible season. Royals aren't any good. They're 74 and 88, or was it 72 and 90? Somewhere in between there. 2022, he sticks it out again. He has one of his worst career years. They lose 97 games. And then last year, I couldn't imagine being out there every single day. And that you're kind of reaching the twilight of your career. He's no spring chicken anymore. And that team loses more than any team you would ever been a part of. Going all the way back to 2011, 2012, 2013. 106 losses Salvador Perez has to endure. And there was a point in time at the trade deadline, we all thought this could be it. And a lot of us Royals fans felt like they're still going to be losing baseball games for the next 2 to 3 years. And a lot of them. They're not really close. The farm system's not there. We didn't know if the Royals would spend money. They'd had a couple of bright spots with Bobby Witt Jr. and Cole Reagans, but they were still a long ways off. And then this offseason happens. And you felt like J.J. Picollo and John Sherman were rewarding the Royals fan base, but also rewarding Salvador Perez and giving him this opportunity. And it's one thing to ride the coattails and be along for the ride. I think Salvador Perez would be happy if if he was a backup catcher and Freddie Fermin had taken his spot and you couldn't really play Salvy anymore, he'd still be happy being able to experience this once or twice a week when playing in a game. But he's having, in my opinion, the best season of his career. I really do believe that. I've had this debate before, and I understand the 48 home run season and the 120 plus RBI season was unmatched. You look at that and you'd say by far and away his best year. But I also go back to the fact that those games, playoff-wise, didn't matter. They mattered to mold some of the young players the Royals still have today. But they were not meaningful playoff games. Salvador Perez tonight getting his 100th RBI of the year at Yankee Stadium in a playoff push against a team you might see in October, that's elite stuff, man. And he was 4 for 4 yesterday. He opens the series 6 for 6. He's got more walks than he ever has in his career. He's hitting for average this year. He's got a high OBP. I mean, this is a completely different Salvador Perez than what we're used to, but not really at the same time. He is more deserving than any player in baseball that will get to experience the postseason because of what he had to ride it out. I know there will be people responding and saying, oh, what about this player in this spot or this player in this spot? Salvador Perez should have been playing in the postseason not long after 2015 had wrapped up. That 16 team should have had another shot. That 17 team should have had another shot. And if the Royals were truly committed to winning in 18, 19, 20, 21, 20, they could have had another year like this. They didn't want to really spend the money. They thought they had to rebuild through the system again. And J.J. Picollo and John Sherman came in, and they brought in the right pieces, and those right pieces have led to one of the most extraordinary seasons that baseball has ever seen. And glad to see that not only is Salvador Perez a part of it, but he is contributing at the highest level. This is as good as he has ever looked in a Royals uniform, in my opinion. If you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments, either on Twitter or on YouTube. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. But before we do that, thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Pat Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When we come back, the Gauntlet Part 2 ends tomorrow. What can we make about that 20-game stretch? And I have some words of encouragement for fans out there, and more so praise for a team that had to endure a lot in those 20 games. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our last sponsor we want to give a shout out to is our title sponsor in FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. And tomorrow, it'll be Cole Reagan's on the bump for Kansas City. If you're wanting to put some money down, I would strongly recommend taking the over in the strikeout total. If Seth Lugo can get 10 against that lineup, feel like Cole Reagan's can pretty much do the same and add to his 200-plus strikeout season in Kansas City. But do so over at FanDuel. I think tomorrow will be a big exhale moment for a lot of Royals fans because these last 20 games, which will wrap up tomorrow, and I'm going to call it Gauntlet Part 2. I feel like I've called it that before because the Royals had a gauntlet earlier in the year. It was the end of May and bled into June, and that was a moment that defined their 2024 season as well. But this was the true defining measure of the 2024 Royals team and why I believe they're going to be headed to the postseason. It's not too much of a shock at this point. There's 16 games to go. They have a 5.5 game cushion in the wild card race. and they are closer to the best record in the American League than they are to losing a wild card spot. So again, if you are superstitious and you want to knock on wood, I'll do it for you here. I know that I've done that a few times as well, and trying to make sure that none of the jinxes hurt this team. But I just have a lot of confidence with where this team is at right now. And this gauntlet, this second one for that matter, has presented the Royals with a lot of things that they didn't go through back in April, in May, in June. They dealt with more adversity in these last 20 games than they did in the previous 100. To lose Vinny Pasquantino in Houston, that was a defining moment to me. Lucas Ursa getting hurt on that same play, and your best bullpen arm blowing a game like that, and the wild card lead dwindles down a little bit. You lose ground in the division. You get first place in the division for a second, then you immediately give it up, and you're 4.5 games back. You bring in 3 new guys, and Tommy Pham, Yuli Gurriel, and Robbie Grossman. You know, the bullpen has its struggles, has its issues. The starting rotation gets roughed up a little bit. There's a 7-game losing streak. Then the starting rotation takes off again. There was so much going on in that 20-game stretch that I remember right before that Phillies series, we said on here, this will be it. This will tell us if they are going to play in October or they are not. And we gave our best case scenarios, our worst case scenarios. They're 9-10 after tonight. And you throw a 7-game losing streak in there. They have a chance tomorrow to take a series in the Bronx and finish 500 against the toughest stretch that really any team in baseball had gone through in the second half. This 20-game stretch is what Boston fans, Seattle fans, Tigers fans, Twins fans, and Guardians fans looked at in either getting a bigger lead on Kansas City or catching up to Kansas City. You know, I'm sure Boston fans said, that's when it will be. That's when we can catch up to the Royals. When Seattle said, if we can survive long enough, just wait till that 20-game stretch that the Royals have. And then when that 7-game losing streak happens and Vinny Pasquantino goes down, the feeling had to be, okay, they were right. This actually is the start of the downfall. But the way they responded, going back a week ago, to win that game against Cleveland, to win 3 in a row against Minnesota, who you were trailing by a half a game in the standings in both the American League Central and the wild card race, and then you've split the first 2 games in New York. So a 7-game losing streak followed by going 5-1. To rebound in the way this team did without one of the most influential players in that clubhouse, that tells you something about them. And again, as we said last night, and as I think we said on Sunday, I don't know how far they make it. I don't know when this dream season comes to an end. But this team deserves, I think, a ton of respect for what they have given the fan base. How they haven't pointed fingers, complained, made a big deal about stuff that's going on to them, or complaining about the 20-game stretch of first-place teams, and you lose Vinny Pasquantino, we lose Michael Lorenzen, we lose Hunter Harvey. Never complained about it. Never had a doomsday approach to anything. And here they are, 14 games over 500, and they had that feeling in the clubhouse of people have doubted us. People have been waiting for the downfall here. Even some fans within our own fan base had waited for the downfall. I could go back every single month and pinpoint certain people that messaged me and said, this team's bad, here's when it happens. Then the calendar turned over, and they were fine. Then the calendar turned over, and they were fine. And look, I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. I've kept that very, very consistent from the first episode we ever did on this podcast. But you can feel pretty good as a fan if you believed from opening day to tonight and hopefully much further into October. Because I feel like so many times this year, not only has the team been tested, I think the fan base has been tested. Do you believe they can come through? Do you feel like this is a turning point for them. They can take this adversity. And a lot of people during that 7-game losing streak and after Vinny got hurt thought, yep, this is it. They're not even going to make the postseason. Hell, I had some people tell me they might not even finish over 500. But 14 games over 500, 16 games to go. They have a 5.5 game cushion over a playoff, or over the Red Sox and the Tigers for a playoff spot. And they have a 2.5 game cushion over the Minnesota Twins. They will take on the Yankees tomorrow night. Cole Reagan's on the bump as Kansas City will look to take the rubber match of that series and then have an off day before heading to one of the most gorgeous ballparks in all of baseball, PNC Park in Pittsburgh, to take on the Pirates. But as for us, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson, and you can always find me on Twitter X at JohnnyJ_15. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tomorrow, we're going to recap the series finale in New York and take a little sneak peek into that upcoming series against the Pirates. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.